Shaketube 2018 continues. I'll put all the links down below to all the wonderful folks whose videos I haven't watched yet, so I have to make my own video so I can actually watch what they've said. This week it is As You Like It, Hamlet and the Merry Wives of Windsor. I read As You Like It, watched production of it, and watched two productions of the other ones using the glorious tool of YouTube to find various free versions to just have a looky-see at. So yes, I focused on As You Like It. And indeed, it's one of these things of watching Shakespeare is really fun and enjoyable, and you get quite a bit, but then you go back and you do the text, and it kind of boggles the mind that a lot of the there's a lot of people who didn't get to actually read Shakespeare in his time and only got got level 1, or I mean, they probably watched it hundreds of times and were a lot smarter than me and could just pick up stuff, so maybe they probably did. But indeed, I find it very rewarding to actually go back and go through the text of these things. For As You Like It, I'm not going to sum up the story, you know. Orlando and company all go to the Forest of Arden, where various things happen away from court. There's the dynamic of courtly life and in nature and all that stuff. And there's like a sort of three lovers going. You see, here I am. I can't help myself. A summary. There's the three lovers there's just like Touchstone and Phoebe, just like lust, you know, it's just physical love. And then there on the other side, there's oh god damn it, Phoebe and Oliver, not Oliver, Phoebe and somebody who are all about courtly love, and they never get out of that stage. They're always kind of like they're always stuck in that kind of a courtly love of just a higher level. And of course, in the middle is our main lovers of Rosalind and Orlando. And you know, Rosalind is a boy actor who is playing Rosalind, who is then playing a boy to Orlando, saying, "Okay, hey, you treat me, you call me Rosalind, and I'll test your love, or I'll help you with your lovemaking, or cure you of your love," probably more accurately. And yeah, so there's that, but I'm not focusing on any of that. I'm going to focus on Jacques, which I thought was Jacques, but no, Jacques, this lord attending on the banished Duke Senior, and he is this guy he loves melancholy. He's some point there's talking about like sad songs. It's like, oh, I suck the melancholy out of songs like a weasel sucks eggs, which is an interesting, maybe telling a little bit of imagery on its own of like, you're not supposed to really think that's as wonderful thing or a pleasant image of these weasels sucking on the eggs of birds. And there's this thing about him of, you know, he wants to be the fool. He wants to be given license to just speak his mind. And, you know, of course he's in the forest, but even then, attending on a banished lord, he's like, he's sort of seeking license because he wants to be able to speak his mind and cleanse the foul body of the infected world if they would patiently receive my medicine, which in some ways, I think of like the artist as being someone who might use their observations and looking at the world, and a part of it might be, I want to show you all this horrible stuff that's happening to, in some ways, improve the world. Or if not improve the world, at least kind of give people a more clear vision of the world. Now, he apparently started off life as a libertine. He's done a lot of travels. And indeed, it seems like he says his travels and his ruminations on them have made him sad, have made him melancholy, and also a lover of melancholy. You know, another melancholy fellow I might discuss very, very briefly at the very end of this. You know, he's the ultimate cynic. We have him doing the most famous speech in this play is given to Jacques, which is an interesting self in itself, because he's not really, he's always just an observer. He's always someone who doesn't seem to be in the action, but he's given all the world's a stage speech. Where, you know, and man just walks upon the stage and plays its parts, and then, you know, is no more. And, you know, he's got that kind of the idea, like he's the ultimate cynic in the sense of, you know, this strange eventful history ends like with a second childishness and mere oblivion, sans teeth, sans eye, sans taste, sans everything. And it's like mere oblivion. Like we're not given a kind of a thing of like, oh, there's going to be an afterlife or you know, the spiritual side. It's like, no, just sans a mere oblivion at the end. Now it's interesting, like he's not presented as like, he's presented in some ways as this guy at the very beginning, like he's mourning over the death of this deer. And, you know, saying like, oh, you know, you guys who've come to this forest and are killing the deer to survive, you're as bad as usurpers as Duke Frederick, who's usurped his brother, you know, where you're usurping these animals, which it's interesting. I think of like a kind of veganism and stuff like that now, but I wonder if at the time that this was sort of seen as just nonsense of like, well, you know, that's just the way it is. We eat to survive, and thus we're going to eat the things. But he's given this thing of like, oh, and you know, all his compatriots just like, you know, this deer has fallen, and the rest of the deer just forget him and go on with their lives, which is indeed, you could say, we die and we are forgotten. And you know, maybe there's a couple of loved ones who will remember us to their death, and then they're forgotten. We're just mere oblivion. Again, I always get to this to be or not to be stuff, or just this idea of permanency, of like the impermanency of life, the fleeting gasp of it. Oh God, there's probably some other thing of like, you know, there's like oblivion, a flash, and then oblivion again. Like that's the span of life. It's mostly just oblivion, which I'm not a Shakespeare scholar, so I can't pull up the relevant quote there. I'm sure someone down below will immediately go click and have it, or Google it. I won't know the difference. So yeah, and at the very end of this thing, it's interesting. He goes up against Roz, who I believe Rosalind. I don't want to say Roz. Rosalind is definitely. She's the player. She's the person who seems to be on point. I mean, she gets the epilogue. This woman, this wonderful character, gets the thing, and it's interesting how she deals with the Jacques, which is like, you know, it's, you know, your experience makes you sad. I'd much rather have a fool that would make me it would make me merry. And indeed, her last things to him is, you know, farewell, Monsieur Traveler. Look you lisp and wear strange suits. Disable all benefits of your own country. Be out of love with your nativity, and almost chide God for making you that continent you are. Or I will scarce think you have swum in a gondola. And I think that look you lisp, which is like a thing of, you know, speaking childishly, is one sense of that. And I think of that a second childishness that he talks about. There's this thing of like, you know, you're being childish in your melancholy in a way. You're being unrealistic of you know, she rather dismisses him like, you know, we have to get on with life. We can't just be standing by the things. And it's interesting because you have this speech here, and it's like poof. That's basically him until the very end, when he learns that, oh, the Duke Senior has been restored to power, and Duke Frederick, his usurper brother, has given up this world, has had a conversion, and has given up his like aims of conquest and basically of killing everybody, just given up this world and gone to a monastery. And he's gone like, oh, I'm going to go and find out about this conversion, because it sounds like that would be useful to me. And you wonder, is like, oh, is that like a conversion of like he's interested in converting, or is this just like, oh, you know, now that the Duke Senior has gone from being at the bottom, I need to go find where the bottom is again. So yeah, you know, Shakespeare is always giving you these options, bouncing characters off of each other. Jacques just was like, oh, here's something particular that I can focus on. So I enjoyed that. And that's just like one sliver of this play, which I've barely excavated myself in the thing. I also watched Hamlet. It's interesting. The more I dug into Jacques, I thought about Jacques and Hamlet as two fellows that kind of go together. The Jacques is much more the general state of existence is what is what seems to be gives him that melancholy, while, you know, Hamlet is much more about, you know, the death of his father. Though you wonder if Hamlet was more of a Jacques kind of contemplative fellow, and then something happened, really bad happened, and that really sent him into a tailspin. These plays, all three of them actually seem to be roughly contemporaneous. I mean, you know, it's so hard to tell, but they all have these dates that are kind of like sort of between this and that, which they kind of all intermix. So you can see someone like Jacques and Hamlet kind of having these conversations with each other. And indeed, yeah, I could see these two getting in a room and just, oh man, like two college students talking about how you know, man, life is just meaningless, man. Yeah. So maybe that's slightly my view of arrogant young Hamlet in a way, or what I see as sort of some of the arrogance of young Hamlet and his sudden and precipitous actions. At least as I see them. You know, God, I'm glad I didn't focus on Hamlet in a way, because Hamlet is just like, if As You Like It is sort of intimidating in all the things you could get into, Hamlet is even more so, and it's also got so many more speeches that your brain in some ways slightly clicks off. You get that to be or not to be speech. Like, how do you go to that without just kind of spouting just the sort of the usual rote stuff? And I mean, I'm sure I have not brought anything particularly grandly original to Jacques either, but yeah. Merry Wives of Windsor I had a lot of trouble with. Maybe because it is a less, I kind of came to this like, oh, you know, I'll find free stuff, free productions, like, you know, almost amateur productions of it on thing. And, oh, you know, Shakespeare's sturdy enough that we can get that. But I clicked through a couple of productions before I found one that was like, okay, I can at least watch this production of Merry Wives of Windsor, because a lot of them were just awful. And you know, it's just like, it was just blah, 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 kind of garbage, which, or you wonder, it's like, oh, is this kind of less sturdy of a play? When I finally got to one that was, I started going like, there's often charges made, like, you know, Shakespeare at his time was viewed as like what television writers are viewed now, is like, this is just kind of disposable entertainment. And this is like, you know, you go for some yucks, but like you're partying with your friends, you're drinking, you're chatting, you're not really listening to, it's like reality TV now. It's like you put reality TV on and you do stuff on your computer, and you know, you're oh, what's Facebook going, and it's all that sort of stuff. You don't pay attention to it. No offense to people who love Merry Wives of Windsor, and indeed I didn't read it, which I think is a crucial thing here. I found it the most TV sitcom-ish, like, wow, this is like, there's 2.5 Men, which is sort of semi-body, you know, had Charlie Sheen in it. That's probably back when I actually watched it. It was rather body kind of sitcom. And to be honest, Merry Wives of Windsor really just kind of reminded me of that sort of like, oh, here's a couple of ways we're gonna you know, humiliate this comic buffoon Falstaff who didn't come across as deep. At least maybe that could have been by production, how it was chopped. Because, I mean, the lovely thing about Shakespeare is people grab Shakespeare's text and go, great, we're not going to use that, we're not going to use that, we're not going to use that, we're going to hammer it down. So maybe they also hammered it down into more of a sitcom situation. So I won't, you know, don't take my judgment of what was just one viewing of a production of the Merry Wives of Windsor. As sort of like, oh, okay, it's like, you know, comic scenarios, and we're out. And, you know, and you get the kind of seem to have all the tropes and stuff like that. So yeah, I got less from that. I got less from that one. And I'll be interested to see, the various different takes on the Merry Wives of Windsor, just because I obviously only got the very shallow. I'm really down in the cheap seats, not cheap seats, probably down in the muck, you know, probably picking people's pockets and saying, hey, you want to buy some drugs kind of dude versus, not that I do any of that. I don't know why I'm saying that, but, you know, of a non-careful person of that. I also did read sonnets. I'm having trouble with the sonnets just because again, I think I'm getting like a very kind of surface read of them. I looked at Sonnet 65, where, you know, it's like, since brass, nor stone, nor earth, nor boundless sea, but sad morality, sways their power, How with this rage shall beauty hold a plea, whose action is no stronger than a flower? Oh, how shall summer's honey breath hold out against the wrackful siege of battering days, when rocks impregnable are not so stout, nor gates of steel so strong, but time decays? Oh, fearful meditation, where, alack, shall time's best jewel from time's chest lie hid? Oh, what strong hand can hold his swift foot back, or who his spoil of beauty can forbid? Oh, none, unless this miracle might have, that in black ink my love may still shine bright. Which is, again, is I don't know, to me, it seems to be like we're getting kind of this repetition of like, oh, but maybe my literature will hold out. And I mean, you know, Shakespeare's literature has indeed held out, but I'm trying to, like, you know, it's like, I'm going to basically Jacques, like the whole thing of, you know, sans teeth, sans everything, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, you're just going to be forgotten, which this is what this poem is going, this sonnet seems to be going for as well, but saying, oh, but, you know, but in black ink my love may still shine bright. It's like, you know, the black, and that's like the stars above. And yes, the stars above are immortal to us little fruit fly human beings, but even they blink out after a while. Of course, that's, and it's just like the expanse of cosmic time we get into. And it's like, what do we do with that, being little fruit flies in cosmic time? And, yeah, I don't have any answers to that. And I think if there's something I want to get out of this is like, why is this such a fixation for Shakespeare? Why is this, I guess this is the whole thing of morality. It's like, why do we only have a limited amount of time, and how do we deal with that? Yeah, so that's all I have. Now I get to go watch everybody's videos and probably not leave comments, because I'm terrible at comments. And yeah, that's my own neuroses, my own ruminations getting the better of me. More videos later.